All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to True Crime Loser. I hope you're doing well this morning. So, I have a story for you guys today, and this happened in 2017. And I got an email. I had talked about it before, but at the time, I've worked for like a pet care company. One of my buddies started it probably 10 years ago at this point, and it's a great side gig. His girlfriend does all the scheduling, and you can work as much or as little as you want for it. And yeah, just was a great side gig. And so in September of 2017, I get an email from his wife, my buddy's wife that does the scheduling, and she said that there is a greyhound named Felix on the Upper West Side, so the same neighborhood as the John Lennon video, very ritzy, wealthy neighborhood. There's a lady that has a greyhound named Felix, Upper West Side, that needs a walk Monday through Friday between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. And I really needed the money at the time, and also it's a bit that 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. is a big window. I liked that, and so I was like, yeah, okay, I'll agree to do it. So I went and met with her, met the dog, and started walking Felix every afternoon on the weekdays, shooting over and walking him. And then about a month into walking Felix, I got a phone call from my buddy's wife. I guess she owns the company too. The owner of the company, and she doesn't really call that often. It's usually like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" through email, and so I'm like, "Hello?" And she goes, "Hey, so I just got a call from Felix's owner." And she was bawling, crying, and she said that Felix bit a kid in the face. And, do you want to keep walking him? Or I can't even really remember. I think she just wanted to tell me. But the story was that Felix was laying there, and a kid running and screaming ran around the corner, not really paying attention, and ran like right into him. And Felix was scared and bit the kid. And the way it was told, it was a lot of the kid ran up on him. You can't just run up on a sleeping animal and expect it not to get scared. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll go and talk to her. And so the next day I went at the normal time, and she was real sad. She works, or at least at the time worked, for a big bank and lived alone on the Upper West Side. And I could tell that she was a pretty lonely lady, and this dog was her companion, her one kind of companion. Like, we would get back from the walks and she would be working, and she'd be like, "Hey boys, the boys are back." Like, we had just gotten done playing golf together. Like, "Hey boys." And it was just like, "Hey." So I get over there, and she's distraught and is saying, "I hope that he's okay," and she felt horrible for the kid, obviously. And so she was like, he has a lot of issues that if you like approach him when he's laying down. And so I was like, okay, well, to me it seemed like the kid's fault. Can't run up on him. And I was like, yeah, I'll keep walking him. And so I walked him for probably another week or two, and then I got an email saying, from the owner of the pet care company, saying that Felix's owner is going out of town for a week. Would you stay in her apartment and watch Felix for that week? And this is probably the thing I did most for this company, is pet sitting. And what I didn't know about New York before I moved here is all the rich people travel a lot. Like in Colorado, you may be going like one big vacation a year and some weekend trips, drive around, but other than that, you're just at your house. Just, yeah, this is our house. This is where we are most of the time. Not so much the case here in New York City. So you could have like a couple that has two chocolate labs and a nice apartment, but they're gone for weeks or months at a time. And because of that, there's a lot of money in pet care. So say a couple, some rich couple, is going to be out of town for a month. They call a pet care company that's insured and, I don't know, professional, and they say, we're going to be gone for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and we would like someone to stay in our apartment with our dogs. And then the lady that owns a pet care company emails somebody and says, do you want to stay in this apartment? And so it was great, especially when I was single. You just stay across town and you get paid for it. And you can still live. You can do exactly what, you don't have to like stay in the apartment all day. So you can do comedy gigs. Usually their apartment was closer to where I was doing comedy anyway. And just a nice apartment, lounge out, hang out with cool dogs, make some money. The way you could make money actually is if I went and got groceries or if I brought food. Usually the neighborhoods that I would do it in were so expensive that if I eat out the whole week, I basically just spend all the money. And so the key is if you do pet sit, get groceries and cook. But it's also weird sometimes to cook in other people's kitchen. But anyway, so I get an email. What's her face is going out of town for a week. She's going to London for a work thing and asking if I'd want to stay in her apartment with Felix for the week. And I said, yeah, sure, I needed the money. And so I get there and she isn't really contactable. It's kind of like a horror movie. I showed up to this apartment with Felix and couldn't contact her. And yeah, sleeping in her bed, just in her apartment for a week. And so the week went fine. I just ate. I remember eating like crap. It's kind of a weird neighborhood. It's like 81st and Columbus for the people that know. It's just kind of a weird neighborhood, and taking care of Felix, and everything's going fine. And then the last night, so my girlfriend is at our apartment hanging out with little T. But we try to the whole week, like I'll go out to Brooklyn and we'll hang out and do dinner, and then she'll come up to that neighborhood, like switch off. And the last night we met for dinner at Pio Pio, a good Peruvian restaurant. And I don't know, I remember just being like, all right, yeah, I'm done at 11 tomorrow. And my girlfriend's like, I'm so glad that you're done and gonna be home. And so I walk my girlfriend to the train after dinner, and then I walk back to the apartment with Felix. And I think it was maybe like 10 something, and I'm sitting on the couch. Oh yeah, so I obviously knew that Felix had bit the kid that had run up on him, and then she had written a huge list of things and posted it on the fridge for me, like the number to the vet and I don't know, just a bunch of things. But one of them on there was, do not engage with Felix while he's lying down, which I kind of knew. But I'd been there a week, and I'd been taking care of him a week and feeding him a week. You figure, like, if you feed an animal, if I was his food source, so I thought that we were cool, And so it's maybe like 10 something, and I'm sitting on there. She had like a little 2-person couch. So I'm sitting on the couch with my laptop right here, just doing some work. And Felix is laying on his side on the other seat of the couch. And so his he's like laying like this. So his butt's right here and his head is like all the way over here. It's a big old greyhound. They look like big muscular deers. And so I'm sitting there on my laptop, maybe like 11 something. And so I close my laptop, set it down, and then kind of just I had been like petting him, you know, while I'm on my laptop, petting him, Felix. Hey, buddy, how you doing, buddy? You know, scratching his ears, all good. And I closed my laptop, set it on the floor, and then kind of just leaned in a little bit to just be like, how you doing, Felix, you know? And as soon as I leaned in, he just closed, it was so fast, just closed the distance and just turned around, like popped up and turned around and grabbed my nose faster. I mean, like I said, it was like, it was crazy. So I leaned in, and before I know it, it was just like on the nose, and then just like he went like once. I remember the feeling of like pulling, and then I remember screaming the F word, just like fuck. And then he let go, and then I just remember blood, so much blood. And I wasn't trying to like catch it or hold it. I just was sitting there just bleeding everywhere. And the first thought that ran through my head was not like this hurts, or it was how bad is the cosmetic damage? How much is my face ruined was the first thing. And so I stood up, still just bleeding, just crazy amounts of blood, and I walked to the bathroom, and I look in the mirror, and it doesn't look, it looks bad, but not like nothing was hanging. I remember just being like, all right, nothing's hanging, and I'm looking in the mirror, and so much blood is falling out with so much force that it's hitting the sink, and with enough force, then it's bouncing out of the sink onto the floor. So I'm just sitting there being like, Jesus. And I was like, all right. And so I grabbed one of her washcloths and I jam it up against my face. And I just grabbed my keys and walked out of the apartment. And I hated the building it was in. One, the elevator was hot as shit. And the lighting in the elevator was this bright, and it's on 24/7. So if you come really late at night or you leave early in the morning, you know, the lighting never changes. So it's this like artificial, brutal, bright, terrible lighting in the elevator. So I'm in this elevator just fucked, you know, holding this against my nose, being like, damn it. Just burst out onto the street, blood everywhere. My whole hands are bloody. My whole face is bloody. My clothes. So I bust out just on this Columbus street at like 11 o'clock at night, totally bloody. And I'm just like trying to wave a cab down. Finally, a cab pulls over and you see his eyes like look at me. And I get in and I close the door and I was like, I got to go to the emergency room. And he was like, which one do you want to go to? And I was like, I don't know. I don't care. Just can you just Google one and drive to it? I'd never been. I think at that time had been in New York. Well, let's see. I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7 years, and had never been to the hospital. So I had no idea where to go or anything. So I was like, I got to go to the emergency room. And so we're driving, and he goes, what happened to you? It was like a dog bit my nose, and he was just like, oh, Jesus. And so headed to the emergency room. I know that my girlfriend gets up at 5:30 in the morning. She's a teacher, and so I know that she's in bed already. She goes to bed at 9:30. So I'm thinking she's in bed. I could call her and wake her up, and she could do the 40-minute train ride or a $50 cab ride to the hospital and sit with me. But I was like, you know what? It doesn't help her to wake her up and drag her out of bed. So I'll just let her sleep, and I'll tell her the next day, tomorrow. And I knew my parents would be up because they're 2 hours behind in Colorado. So I called them, and they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, this dog bit me. And so I get to the hospital, and I go into the guy drops me off at the emergency room. And I go in, I'm holding the washcloth just like this. And I think they thought I had a bloody, just like a really bad bloody nose or something. They couldn't really see. So I was like, yeah, I need help. And they go, okay, well, we got some paperwork. And she starts stacking all this paperwork up on the desk. And I just go and showed her my ruined face. And she just goes, okay, yeah, we can fill this out. We'll bring you right back. The thing about thing about emergency rooms in America is you gotta be really, if you don't want to wait for 3 hours, because if you're just like, I'm really sick, I got like a pain, you'll sit in the waiting room for 3 hours. So the key is to just go in. Like I shattered this arm. I don't know. I have like a huge scar right there and another one right here. But I shattered this arm where both bones were sticking out. That was another one. Show up to the emergency room, got right in. Excuse me, everybody. And so they were like, all right, come back in here. And so I get brought back in, and the emergency room, whatever hospital I went to, I still don't even remember to this day. But whatever one I was into, at a late at night, it was a pretty crazy scene. I would say 60% of the people there were just trying to get painkillers. Like the guy next to me, I heard the doctors being like, I think your tooth is fine. And he was like, no, it's my tooth is ruined. I need something strong. I need painkillers. I'm in a lot of pain. They're like, we're looking at your tooth. So there was a lot of just people, and then me with just a destroyed face. And so at first, they bring me back into a room, and the nurse is like, okay, since it's a dog bite, we got to disinfect it because you don't want it to get infected. And so she fills this bottle with, I don't even know, something. It was one of those things. She was like, okay, this is going to sting really bad. And so she was like opening the cuts and spraying this stuff in it. And it wasn't horrible. And then she was like, okay, now you should be good to just kind of hang out here, and then the doctor will come stitch you up. And so that was, like I said, like 11, maybe 11:30, and I didn't see the doctor. I just sat in that little room until 2:30 in the morning. So I was just in the emergency room with this nose thing. And at one point, this guy, the tooth guy, so after they told him, like, no, we're not giving you painkillers, I heard the whole thing, he just kind of stuck around. You could tell he hung out in there a lot because he was just sort of like walking around. He was just in his plain clothes, just kind of walking around. He was talking, hey, how you doing, doc? What time did your shift start? Like, you could tell he was in there a lot. And at one point, he walked past my little, it was like divided by curtains. He walked past Mila and looked in at me. And I was just kind of sitting there feeling depressed about how my face is ruined. And I kind of was like, hello? And he goes, damn. And he like looked around and he goes, I got something for your nose, buddy. And he went like this, just like, and he was like, ha ha, and like laughed and wandered off. And so I sat there until 2:30 in the morning. And then finally a really nice doctor came in to stitch me up. And he was saying that I was really lucky because none of the plumbing, like any of my sinuses or anything got hurt. It was just purely like on the top of and he was saying maybe every 2 or 3 months, someone comes into the emergency room holding their nose, just being like, fuck, I need help, like from a dog bite. So I was feeling pretty depressed and just like, damn it. But after he said that, I was like, all right, there's something to be. And, I was feeling depressed, like I'm trying to do like a showbiz thing, and I'm not going to win any beauty contest before this happened. So now there's this too. Like I was feeling this whole like, why was I in that apartment with that dog? It had already bitten a kid. Like I had all these kind of, I don't know, just negative thoughts that night, obviously. And so he stitched me up afterward, in the healing process in the next 2 weeks, telling all my friends and family, they were like, did you make sure a plastic surgeon did the stitches because you don't want it to scar? And I was like, no, I did. How do you make, I was in the emergency room at 3 a.m. How do you make sure a plastic surgeon did it? It's like, hey, I demand a plastic surgeon does these stitches. I was sitting there with a half open nose, just wanting to go home. So no, I didn't. And so the emergency room doctor was cool. He was like, since it's on your face, I'll use really small stitches, hopefully cut down on the scar. So he stitched me up, and it even looked almost worse after he stitched me. And the tip of my nose was black and blue, like a bruise, because the dog had squeezed it. So glad my nose just didn't come off. He had squeezed it so hard that it actually like bruised on the tip. And so it's like 3 something in the morning, and I leave and I take a cab, and I'm thinking, should I just go back to my apartment and just fuck that dog? But the thought I'm thinking is, if this just turns into a lawsuit nightmare, I just want my hands to be clean. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go back up there. So I take a cab back up to that apartment. And so now I'm riding in that depressing, horrible elevator with the terrible lighting, with a big, giant, stitched up nose. And I go back into the apartment. It's just all the dried blood and horribleness, and the dog's in there. And you could tell the dog felt real bad, but I wasn't too happy with the dog, as you can imagine. So I walked the dog just like around the corner, let it go to the bathroom, and then I brought it back in. I took a shower, just kind of like tried to wash all the, blood, and tried to feel a little bit fresher. And then I laid down, slept for ended up sleeping, didn't think I was going to, slept for a little bit, woke up at 6 a.m. I was like, all right, I'm going to call my girlfriend. Called her, so she had, woken up for work, is thinking this is the last day he's house sitting and he's coming home. Call her and be like, hey, and it's a weird thing to describe, especially earlier in the morning. Like, everything I was saying sounded fake. I was like, hey, so Felix attacked my face last night, and I was in the emergency room all night and have 11 stitches in my nose. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm sitting here because we had just gotten Peruvian food what seemed like hours before. So this whole thing had happened. And then she was like, you should have called me. I would have come. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I wanted you to sleep, and I didn't think it would help. And she was pretty mad I didn't call her. So then I was like, okay, I'll see you later. And then I walked the dog again that morning, and I think the owner was getting home that afternoon or something. And then I just left. I think a buddy actually came and got me, and we drove and got some breakfast or something. But it actually didn't hurt that bad, the whole healing process. And it was pretty fun because it looked horrible the couple days after I got surgery. And it was fun riding the train because I'd be sitting there on the train and everyone would be like, what happened to this guy? But healed good. I don't know if you can even see it on the camera, but there's a scar right here. The 2 canine teeth missed, which I think is really lucky. So his 2 canine teeth missed the nose. So I had scrapes from his canines right here. And then the front teeth got right here. You can see it more in real life than on the camera. Right here, and then under here. You know how uncomfortable it is to have a zit right here? Or just a sore, or if it dries out? I had the skin was just rubbed off right there. And then it was kind of funny. I was going to the same place to get breakfast while I house sat the whole time I was there, kind of at the same time. And that morning after I was just kind of up still that morning. So it was the same woman that I ordered from every morning. And so that last morning, she had seen my face every day. And then I walked in and she was just like, oh my God. And I was like, yeah, had a rough night, but it healed almost better than I was hoping it would. I wanted more of a scar, get a little marked up. There's nothing really more natural on planet Earth than being attacked by another species. So something very primal about it. And there were no lawsuits. I didn't have to pay anything any of the medical bills or anything. I got reimbursed for the taxis to the hospital and everything, but I didn't sue. I didn't sue her or sue anybody. And some of my friends, I had one friend, Jewish guy, that was he's one of my best friends, was so angry that I wasn't suing her that he wouldn't even talk to me for like 45 minutes. He was like, you have to, like, what? I was like, I don't know. I'm going to wait and see if my face is, how much it heals. If it would have been like screwed up, I probably would have. But, sorry. I'm trying to think. And I guess the last thing is I didn't lobby. I felt bad. This lady was pretty lonely lady with the dog, and is her one true companion. So I didn't lobby for the dog to be put down, even though I think it should. An animal that attacks the thing or the person that's been feeding it, it's just, there's something wrong with it. But I just felt bad as her one companion. But I do feel true guilt to this day of like, what if that dog attacked someone else's face? Like, it probably should have ended with me. But I didn't. And I did see a dog walker walking the dog like a year later, and the dog had a full like Hannibal Lecter muzzle on. So I'm sure it wears that every time it goes out in public. But anyway, pretty crazy. Oh yeah, I wanted to tell you guys, so something really cool. So a fan of the show named Jake Carpenter, who was in the 90s movie Alive, which is a really popular 90s movie. If you search Alive on YouTube and you go to the trailer or the movie that you can rent it, it's just a lot of people being like, this is my favorite 90s movie. I love this movie. And one of the guys in it, Jake Carpenter, is making it's in pre-production, is making another movie right now called The Truth. And he offered me, he's a fan of the show, and he offered me a part in it, which I accepted. And so I'm going to be playing a bank teller. The bank gets robbed, and I'm going to be playing a teller. And one of the funny things about it is I'm going to be playing a teller, and then a woman is going to be playing another teller, and he's making the other teller's name in the movie Shmita. And so hopefully there's going to be, it's not going to be like a comedy scene, he said, or anything, but there's just going to be a fast, quick shot where you see her name tag, and it's going to say Shmita. So in 7 months, we got Shmita into a movie. She's a cultural icon. We did it, everybody. I'm going to cut it off there. Hope you're having a great week. Why? Stavin' why? Shmita.